All right, hey guys, welcome to the C45 podcast with Jon and George. In this series, we'll be sharing facts and information from various industry experts, and we'll discuss a variety of topics relevant to the cannabis producers of all sizes. I myself have designed, built, and consulted for more than 300 grows around the globe. My specialty is all the equipment used to grow cannabis in a greenhouse, indoor and even outdoor now.
And I'm Jon. George and I are the founders of GrowHaus Supply Co. We're a cannabis-centric distributor, currently dealing with 120 LPs across the country, offering a variety of different product lines. Our goal is to provide education and value and service to our customers, and that really spawned this podcast. We couldn't be happier today to be talking about something that's not only topical in the cannabis industry, but also in the world in general, and that's cleaning and disinfecting. We have as our first guest on the show ever, Troy Henderson from Virox Technologies, who has brought to market Shield, which is the first and only Health Canada registered one-step cleaning and disinfecting product on label for use in cannabis facilities. Troy and I have spent a lot of time together in the last year and a half introducing Shield to the marketplace. Currently working with over 100 LPs. We've converted from pre-existing chemistries that they're using for a lot of the reasons we're going to talk about today. We're lucky to have Troy today. He has a biotechnology degree from the Faculty of Engineering at McMaster University, and we're really happy to spend some time with him and have him share his knowledge about cleaning, disinfecting, and some of the pitfalls and education gaps that we see out there.
Okay, guys, so here we are, first ever Cannabis 45 podcast. We're with George and Jon. We're here with Troy Henderson from Virox. Today we're going to talk about sanitation, disinfection, some cleaning products, how LPs actually clean their facilities, and what he's seeing in the industry. So welcome.
Thanks
man.
for having me. Excited to be here.
Yeah.
Welcome, Troy. Cleaning and disinfecting is really important for cannabis facilities. It's not only regulated by the Cannabis Act for licensed producers, but it's directly related and affects the quality of producers' yields and quality of the products that they're making. So it's a really important topic, and we are really involved in this space from our perspective with GrowHaus. So we see a lot of the education gaps and some of the lack of really true knowledge around this topic here. So having you here today from Virox is great. We can really dig deep into providing a lot of real true information education to people out there when they're making decisions around the cleaning and disinfecting products they need. So
Why don't you tell us a little bit about your background, Virox, how it started, products?
Sure. Yeah, so I was in school taking biotechnology at McMaster, and we had a mandatory co-op. Just pretty much stood up, looked everywhere, stood up in my hockey change room, asked around, and my goalie was brothers with Randy Pilon, who was the owner of Virox at the time, and he gave me an opportunity to start in the research and development department for a summer. I went back for another 8 months in quality assurance, so really got to learn a lot of the behind the scenes of the company, learned about the formulas we make and the specs, the quality of the product. Then I transitioned into product strategy and marketing, that's where we started to look at different markets, developing different products for those markets. So a little background about Virox. So we're about a 21-year-old company outside of Oakville, Ontario. That's where all of our products are made. And we have a patented technology called accelerated hydrogen peroxide, or well known as AHP. So we took off in about 2000, 2002, 2003 during the SARS outbreak is really gave us another foot forward there. So since then, a lot of hospitals have adopted, about 90% in North America. And then we took a different approach. You know, there's other markets that need disinfectants and need the education that we provide. So instead of having a one-size-fits-all product, we really looked at the other markets, for example, dentistry, and what do they need? What are they using now? How can we tweak our formulas and our patents to help them out? So we branched off into dentists, to animal health, spas and salons. We have wipes on the space station with NASA. And then, 3 years ago, when I was actually in that product strategy and product development kind of role, we were looking at new markets. And cannabis at the time was just at the forefront of becoming legal. And that's when we started to look at what they need. Like, we had some actually facilities using our products we were able to reach out to and learn how they were using it, maybe why that product they were using wasn't the best. And we were able to tweak it, work with them to really develop the optimum product, which is Shield.
So is the cannabis product Shield a little bit different than the other products in other markets?
For sure, yeah. So one thing that is really important in cannabis is actually the cleaning part of the whole step. So removing those soils. I'm sure you can imagine if you're growing with soil, there's going to be a lot left in the room and the floor. And throughout the whole process, even if you're extracting, you're going to have a lot of oil and resins on the floor on your machine, packaging as well. So we really wanted to have a product that is a great disinfectant. That's a key characteristic of our technology, but also was a really good cleaner, and that's a main difference of Shield compared to, per se, one of our products in a hospital.
With Shield being registered with Health Canada with the DIN number, what other products are facilities using for their disinfecting and cleaning?
We see a wider range of products, and like you mentioned, there is a DIN number on Shield, so that's kind of the one thing.
What's a DIN? Sorry.
A DIN number, so it's a drug identification number. Basically, that is your Health Canada approval. So disinfectants are treated very similar to drugs. So we have to submit all of our toxicity data, our efficacy data, which, proving that we can kill what on our label says we can kill. A lot of data generation. And when you show that to Health Canada, if it's all good and it passes their criteria, then you'll get a DIN number. So all three of our different SKUs, we have a ready-to-use liquid, a wipes, and a concentrate. They all have different DIN numbers because they're different products.
So they don't just hand them out?
They do not just hand them out. This was, typically you're looking at 8 to 9 months just for Health Canada to review your data. Before that, you could be 2 years of data generation, even 2 years before that of even formulating the product. But for Shield, even for an example, just because we made it for cannabis, and there was a lot of language on there specific to that, it actually took over a year with Health Canada. They came back asking, what do you mean by cleaning belly pans or scales? They really didn't have the best idea of it, and it did take a little bit longer.
So even though you had DINs on other products in other industries, it's separate?
Yep, different formula, different products. Even the brand name, we've had other markets where we'll put a brand name out there. For example, one called Rejuvenate, which in the U.S. is a product we have for spas and salons. Health Canada didn't want that because it could be confused as a skin product, especially as a wipe. So you can see where they come from. Even if you took this exact product and made a name that Health Canada didn't like, they wouldn't approve it. So there's more than just the technology. A lot of it's actually what is on your label. Everything you say on your label, you have to have proof that that is true and that is the way it can be used.
Yeah.
So how many facilities across the country have adopted Shield in the last 12 to 14 months since you came to market with it?
Yeah, so I think it's probably just around a year, not even a year, and we're in over 100 facilities right now, and we're talking to our next 50 to 60. And these facilities range from micro cultivators to home growers to the large guys you see publicly traded and are in the news, that you'd be familiar with.
Nice.
Oh, cool.
Yeah.
So home growers even, you mentioned home growers. So even though you're predominantly selling to the big guys, the LPs or licensed producers, you're saying that it's just as important at home, right? Maybe we should talk about why is it important to keep your grow facility clean, whether it's a grow tent at home or a 2 million square foot LP in Canada?
For sure. Well, I think the one thing John mentioned, if you're a licensed facility, you do have the regulations to adhere to. They're not exactly cut in stone, and they're a little bit vague, so there is some work to do there. But that's the one thing you want to make sure Health Canada is happy with what you're doing, but you also want to protect the yield of your crops. One thing that we see a lot is like a clone success rate. And we have some customers that are as high as 99%. And clone success rate is basically for every clone that you put in a pot and you plan to grow, how many of those are actually to get to the end of the process. Mm-hmm. So you obviously want a higher number. A lot of the times we'll go in there and facilities might say 70%, and they're proud of that. They got that up from 50, which is great, but you're still losing 30% of your crop. And a lot of that does come down to sanitation, disinfection, and cleaning. It's not the whole piece. You have to be careful of your HVAC and your overall process, but with a proper disinfection, biosecurity, sanitation program, you can really protect your crops, and we have a lot of evidence of that.
So what kind of things so as a former grower, been in the industry a long time, obviously with cannabis you're looking at botrytis or bud rot, powdery mildew, you've got Pythium, Phytophthora. Some of those are the four that you see as a big challenge in growing cannabis. Like, will this help with those 3, 4, 5 things that are bothering these growers? For
sure it would, yeah. And it's also a matter of how you use the product as well. Like the product itself will get rid of it, but it's how those pathogens are transferred. So when you're looking at powdery mildew, it's going to be absolutely everywhere in your room. So you're going to have to make sure you clean your walls, your floors, under your tables, really get everywhere. If you're looking at botrytis, you make sure you're cleaning your pots or you're disposing them properly. We see a lot of the times I've seen botrytis, very, very common in the Dutch tray system that kind of flows from the bottom. And it really comes down to those tables those are your lifeline. If you're not going to be cleaning and disinfecting those properly, you're never going to get rid of it, no matter what product you use.
So what about the water? Because like you said, a flood and drain table, you may have pathogens in your water.
Yeah.
Is it effective against, like, can you put it in your lines or your irrigation system? Will it help, or is it not allowed? Or
you can clean it in. You can clean your irrigation system with Shield. You can't feed your plants with that solution after that. So we have a process where, depending on what you'd rather do, so we've seen facilities kind of unravel all of the line and soak it in a big tote of Shields. Then you can rinse them out, and then we actually have test strips where after that you can test to see if there's any hydrogen peroxide left, which is the active ingredient in Shield.
Right.
And then we also see maybe it's a stationary system, kind of a clean in place type scenario where you can flush Shield through the lines, let it sit for 45 minutes where you have that biofilm claim. Yeah. And then again, flush with water, collect some of that water, do that test to see if there's anything left there.
So biofilm, that's bacteria in the lines, right? It builds up over time. Not a lot of people know about that.
Yeah, no, for sure. Biofilm is a really large issue, and one of the biggest reasons it's a big issue is because it's not an issue until you see it, and then it's really hard. You're fighting it for a long time. You might have to shut down if it's clogging your lines, you might have to shut down your whole grow to get rid of that, right? And one example I have was a large facility that I visited, and they're showing me their rooms and their plants from the start of the feed to the end. It went from nice green plants like these all the way to yellow and pretty much dying. And the facility didn't know what they were doing, and they're just kind of showing me they didn't think I'd be able to help. They thought it was more of a operations thing. What we did was we took water from the beginning of their line and water from the end of their line, and we tested it. And we saw there was a massive pH change actually from the beginning of the line to the end, and also it was about 1 million times more CFU per milliliter, which is the colony forming units in the water. So it was being contaminated. When we actually looked into it, so they were using a liquid-based nutrient that was causing a particulate in the line, sticking to their lines, which is just feed for bacteria and fungi, created that biofilm. And then that was actually, since the nutrients was kind of creating a matrix there with the biofilm, as the water or the feed that they put through at 6.5 pH, it was going down to like 5.5, even 5, because it was passing through all that, absorbing some of the leftover nutrients, and it was causing their plants to die. And they probably would have lost about 50% of those plants to biofilm.
Wow. So not only is this for your facility, but it helps the plants in many ways.
For sure it does. And another thing we talk about is how it can affect the quality of the plant. Like yield is pretty obvious how that can help, but quality, I think the stats are about 80% of the flower on the market is irradiated, which there's a lot of evidence, especially with gamma irradiation, that shows that it's going to lower your terpene content. Yeah. So you're not going to have that same smell. You're not going to have that same flavor, which that's your first experience as a consumer. You open that package, you smell it, maybe break it apart to smell it if there's the right humidity there, and if you don't get that smell, or it has it's like a unique smell with the irradiation, it's kind of disappointing, right? So with a proper biosecurity program, a large part of that being your disinfection, we have a lot of evidence that you can grow without irradiation, and that would again increasing your quality, and you're actually saving money. You don't have to send your product out to get irradiated, bring it back. You're sorting your process from seed to sale. So overall, irradiation is something that everyone should be trying to avoid, and it is possible. And we've helped a lot of people get to there as well.
I imagine they get more per gram too on the market if it's not irradiated, or do you think that's happening?
Higher quality.
If it's higher quality, it's not irradiated. Do people care about that?
If they're not using proper humidity controls in their packaging, if they're sending it out, getting it back, let's say that's 2 weeks, it could have dried. The relative humidity could have went down from the optimal, maybe 10% lower. That is going to be less yield at the end there too.
So, across the country, prior to Shield and since the adoption of Shield or the invention of Shield, what were existing legacy chemicals that you see LPs using and grow facilities using prior to Shield? And why would they have chosen those chemicals to begin with?
Yeah, well, I think to answer your last question, they're choosing chemicals that they've used probably in their past experience. So most of the time, a lot of the QA or even just the operational guys are coming from pharma or food. Those are really the two most popular we see. So they're taking a lot of their learnings and products and protocols from that background. Typically, the number one thing we see is isopropyl alcohol or ethyl alcohol being used. We see so that'd be like an alcohol base. We see chlorine based products, which is mostly known as bleach, quaternary ammoniums. Then we've seen hydrogen peroxide kind of used. There's different chemistries of that. So there's your standard hydrogen peroxide, typically used at about 3%. Then you have your peracetic acid hydrogen peroxide combination, and then you have which I've never actually seen, but it is out there. Would be like a silver, colloidal silver hydrogen peroxide technology, and then of course the last one being our accelerated hydrogen peroxide technology.
And what would you see? What would you see? The main reason for facilities switching from their existing programs and chemistries to something like Shield? What are some examples that you see out there for why?
More recently, COVID being a huge issue, so people aren't even able to get a lot of the disinfectants they need, and they already know they need to switch. Like a lot of the times we'll go in there and they're like, "Hey, we're having weekly meetings. We gotta get off ISO. Everyone's wearing respirators. It's expensive. Now we can't even get it. Like it's coming to this point." But there's a lot of other examples. So I touched on safety there. So the WSPS, they've had a mandate as of January of this year. They really want to crack down on excessive use of IPA, specifically in cannabis facilities, without the proper engineering controls or personal protection. So, I've been in, I'd say we're over 50% of the facilities I've been. You walk into the cleaning room or the cleaning bay or anywhere where they're cleaning, and you get a waft of IPA or
it's not
that alcohol.
Nice, man.
It burns.
Yeah, it burns your eyes. It burns your throat. It's probably not good for your skin. I mean,
yeah, I feel bad.
Why are they using it?
Well, it's
Is it just that's what they know?
Lysol, for example, and they're a large brand. Everyone knows. Everyone thinks alcohol works. It really doesn't work as well as pretty much everyone thinks. I think that's really, and most people just kind of, it's like a legacy disinfectant, right? People at home, if you're going to Costco, you see Lysol and Clorox, bleach. A lot of people do know that bleach isn't the best, and ISO is kind of that next thing that's so easy. It's everywhere. You've seen it everywhere. You're kind of comfortable using it. You've used it at home. But, when you really do the research, it's not the best product.
So you touched on that. So isopropyl alcohol, you said it's not the best solution or maybe doesn't work at all.
Yeah.
Can you maybe elaborate on that a little bit?
Yeah, so there's different metrics in which you compare disinfectants by. One of the more important ones, kind of under the umbrella of efficacy, which is what does that product kill, and you want to look on the label for that. So, for example, Shield right there says bactericidal, virucidal, fungicidal. So that means it has broad spectrum efficacy against those pathogens. How you would get that is when you go to Health Canada and you're submitting your data, instead of testing every bacteria on the planet, which is literally impossible, they'll say, here's 3 different the toughest to kill bacteria from 3 different families. You can kill all those. We assume that you can kill the rest of the bacteria that are out there. Yeah. So we've done that for viruses. It's the same thing for viruses. It's polio. For fungi, we did the same thing. It was Candida albicans. So that's how Health Canada does it to make it a little bit easier, and those are really tough. Like, for example, poliovirus, if you were to have your classical hydrogen peroxide at 3%, it would take 45 minutes to deactivate poliovirus. Shield, then the ready-to-use is 3 minutes.
Wow.
So,
wow.
Yeah, and that's touching on contact time now, where this is something that's overlooked a lot in every industry, and it's something that Virox really does educate about. It's really comes down to smoke and mirrors marketing of those big legacy brands that we're all familiar with, where on the label it'll say kills 99.9% of bacteria or germs, whatever it says. You gotta look at the star on the top and follow that on the label. It'll then give you a contact time, and what contact time is the amount of time the surface or the equipment that you're trying to clean, disinfect needs to stay wet in order to do the job. So if you have a 3-minute contact time and you're using a wipe, when you wipe that surface, you need to ensure that the surface stays wet for 3 minutes, and then it will achieve the goal that you're trying to do. So, for example, isopropyl is 5 to 10 minutes, kind of depending on what you're going for. You should really aim for 10 if you want to eradicate your bacteria, viruses, and fungi, but it dries in about 30 seconds in ambient temperature.
Yeah, I was going to say, you put it on something and it evaporates so fast.
Exactly, right?
So, but people smell it, so maybe they think, well, it smells clean, it must be clean.
That's a whole other thing too.
Right.
Yeah, the smell of clean, which really should be nothing, right? It should be.
It should be clean.
Like, the Shield has no sense whatsoever, and we've actually got that feedback a lot, where they'll clean their room. They're like, hey, it doesn't smell good in there. Like, it smells like nothing. like that means you did the right job, right? You shouldn't be used to a smell of alcohol or bleach, that's for sure. But even some of those other scents, those are all VOCs, volatile organic compounds, which it's, you know, basically it's how much of that chemical is actually dispersed into the air, which is going to affect your air quality. So like alcohols have a lot, they are VOC. They go into the air, you breathe it in. Who knows if the plants are going to breathe it in if you're using it around them too. So that's something you want to be careful of. Anything that has even terpenes on a plant, like when you smell that plant, those are VOCs. Okay. So that's important. So then we might as well touch on safety there too, because that's not something you'd want in a product. You actually don't want VOCs. Looking at isopropyl alcohol, you really need a respirator if you're cleaning a grow room.
And glasses too.
Glasses, respirator, you really need everything you can get. And that's a pretty expensive and labor intensive program to set up. Like you have to have a whole program around your respirators when you're switching the filters, how often you clean them, maintaining them, logbooks, all that. And it's really the wrong way to look at it. Like if you have to do all that to use that product, maybe you should look at either the way you're using the product or if there's another product on the market.
Absolutely.
Yeah, so like always, you know, employees are the backbone of your company. Make sure they're happy with what they're doing, and you don't want them going home every night saying how, like, you know, not looking forward to coming the next day because they know they have to clean a room for 8 hours with isopropyl.
Yeah. So the employees, they don't like using the stuff they're using now, right?
No.
And so when you show people Shield, what's the reaction? I mean, are they saying, "Wow, there's no smell," or "It's safe on my skin"? Like, what are some of the things you're seeing when you because maybe they haven't seen this product, and when they first do, maybe they don't believe it works, or what are you seeing as far as challenges to enter an LP with a different product?
Yeah, I think everything you said there is true. Like a lot of them have never heard of this, so we're kind of showing it to them, and a lot of the times they actually kind of think it's too good to be true, and we answer all their questions, and it is a superior product. So that can be challenging. And the other challenge is, you know, you're working with a QA department that they've maybe ran this operation for 2 years and it's working, and you're showing them that there's something different and that there is a better option, and you have to be careful with that, right? You want to work with them, not against them. And just showing them like, hey, like this is only 6 months old. What you're doing is fine. This is going to be a little bit better. There's been some cases where it's as easy as just switch out the products and their whole process is so much easier. You're saving money, labor, and the employees are happy. Other times you might have to work with them, changing the actual protocols in the process, training employees, which is something that we take very seriously, and we do like to help out a lot with any potential client or customer of Shield. It's, you know, we want to make sure you're using it to the optimal ability. You have the right equipment options such as dilution systems and application methods like foaming. We don't just want to give you a product, run away, and hope for the best, which is happening a lot out there.
We'll touch on some more of those topics, but maybe it's a good time to talk about one-step versus two-step products.
Yeah, I'm on your website right now, and I'm looking at a chemistry comparison overview on shield.ca, and I'm seeing, you know, you've got your Shield, you got your bleach, you got hydrogen peroxide, you got quad ammonias and IPA, and, you know, it's going efficacy, but it says cleaning ability, and four of the 5 items except Shield says weak doesn't do it.
Yeah.
So it doesn't clean, it just kills.
Yeah, so there's one-step and two-step products. Two-step products are really the majority of the market. Your 70% ISO, your straight bleach, and so those products, like bleach, for example, or the chlorine in there, it's really reactive. So if there's any soil on that surface, it will react with that soil, and it's not going to do as good of a job, getting rid of those pathogens and deactivating those. So any two-step product, you're required to pre-clean the surface, regardless if it looks sparkling clean or not, and you have to use a detergent to do that, to make sure that all the soils are removed. So if you wanted to use ISO to even just clean this table, you're going to have to do your pre-clean with whatever cleaner you have.
Like a detergent of some kind.
Yeah. You're going to want to rinse it. And then you're going to apply your isopropyl. Probably apply it 10 times if you actually want to reach your contact time.
Keep it wet for 10 minutes,
Yeah, so that process, it's a little bit lengthy, and you have 2 products being involved, where as a one-step product, which is what Shield is, we have surfactants, or the detergent there, and the disinfectant all in one. So you're taking that primary step of removing the even just pre-cleaning if there's nothing there. You don't have to do that anymore. You can do it all in one step. So you take the wipe, you clean the table, reaches that contact time, you're good to go.
And so it's, what is it, a 3 to 5 minute contact time on shield?
Yeah, so the concentrate, there is 2 dilutions. There is 1 to 40, and that would be a disinfection for 5 minutes. And then there's 1 to 128 for sanitizing. And then the ready to use is the 3 minutes for disinfection and 30 seconds again for sanitizing.
So the 1-step versus 2-step, what I'm hearing is huge labor cost savings for LPs.
Yeah.
You're literally taking out half of their labor cost to disinfect and clean their facilities.
And that example I said too, that was light. I've even seen 5, even 6, 7-step processes where, that's way overkill. But they'll use a cleaner, a disinfectant, and then rinse, and then use ISO again. It's like, I get you want to make sure it's clean, but there's an easier way to do it.
And I guarantee they're not wearing respirators or the proper PPE to protect themselves either with those products.
That too, right? In the end, all you want to do is go off what the label says. If it says 5 minutes, you don't need a pre-clean, follow that. If it says
that's huge. So coming from a commercial farming background, I know that energy and labor are your 2 biggest expenses to growing any crop in a greenhouse, wherever. So labor, if you can save half the labor by not pre-cleaning, that's big.
Yeah, and when I say pre-clean too, like, you're still going to be, removing do a dry clean, what we say. So sweep large debris, anything that you can get off that's going to fall off the table pretty much. You're going to do that for any process, regardless. You still, even after you do that dry clean, you would still have to do a pre-clean before ISO.
Yeah.
But yeah, and one example, a couple of weeks ago, we were in a facility where, they were manually cleaning 4 tables in a room. There was 4 people, and it took them about an hour per table.
Like wiping them, or
wiping with their
spraying,
hands, microfibers,
scrubbing them,
yeah. And first off, like, they weren't using ISO. It was another product, still a smell to it, but so what we did this little bit of a trial where one of them, one pair, they just did their current process. So they pre-cleaned the table, rinse, disinfect, rinse. The other 2, they just used the shields, the same method, clean the whole table. They got to the end of the table at the same time, but the shield side was done. It had been cleaned and disinfected. It just needed a quick rinse to kind of remove everything else there, whereas their current process was only halfway done, actually less than that, because they still had to rinse, then reapply disinfectant, and then rinse again.
You know what was neat about that experience, because we were together for that one, Troy, was when we got to the next set of tables to work on, we suggested that there might be a way to do this without any manual scrubbing. So what we did was we applied a diluted shield product directly on the tables, let it sit for the 5 minutes, which achieved the contact time, and then we came back with a high pressure hose after the fact.
Wow.
Maybe 5% of it needed to be wiped after, but again, we brought their 1 hour per table down to about 20 minutes and removed all manual labor. So everyone's really happy there.
So let me ask you something then. So you mentioned the tables they're growing on. Most facilities I'm in are using the ebb and flow trays, or I think they're made by Stahlenplast.
Yeah.
And I think they're polystyrene plastic or some kind of special plastic. But is shield safe on benches and aluminum and tools,
stainless steel.
Yeah.
Typical
really
stuff you see in a grow room.
Really, we don't really run into much, and we have a great compatibility resource on our website too if you're unsure. And again, if you are unsure, maybe there's a piece of equipment that you're not sure, we're happy to reach out, do the compatibility testing. We might have actually already done it on a similar component. And then if maybe we've even seen drywall that they're not even sure what kind of paint is on it. Yeah, we do see drywall. Unfortunately, we have, and they're like, hey, this isn't chemical resistant paint. Can we use it? If you're always unsure, we just say, use a little bit on the corner, maybe twice a day for a week. Wipe a corner of it, and if you don't see any kind of corrosion or anything like that, it's going to be okay.
Yeah.
There are some limits, like when you're looking at copper and brass, you want to stay away using shield, but you really want to stay away with pretty much any disinfectant or even water.
That's
at
true.
The end, right?
Well, I mean, I can't even think of any copper or brass in a facility anywhere.
Well, like, for example, when you're looking at like stainless steel, which I'd say is 70% of a facility or so, like bleach products or chlorine products, they're going to be really corrosive to that. And I've walked into facilities where their tables and their greenhouse structures are literally falling apart, and you can see the rust and the corrosion. And again, it's like, if I had seen that, I'd be like, hey, like, we can't use this product anymore. For them, it's just like, look the other way. I don't really want to deal with it right now until it's too late.
Don't want to buy a bunch of new tables and a bunch of new racks.
They'd rather do that
cheap.
sometimes. Yeah.
Well, I sell them. They're not cheap.
Yeah.
But, hey, go ahead and ruin them and then call me.
So outside of, we've talked a lot about cultivation rooms and areas and grow tables and benches and the importance of keeping those areas clean for obvious reasons. What other areas can you use Shield in a facility? Or where do you see really good applications of Shield used, whether it be equipment, processing, extraction?
Yeah. Well, it can really be used anywhere except for on the plants. Another large area we see outside of like your large room turnovers would be on equipment, specifically your trimmers and buckers and all that processing stuff.
Resin. Does it work on resin?
It does work on resin, yeah. So we've actually done a lot of work with Mobius and with Twister to work with them on the best way to clean and disinfect their machines. And what we found is, using the Shield concentrate, soaking for 10 minutes, it really does make it so much easier to come off. And then again, it's disinfected when you're done as well. And there are some parts where you might want to use a heavier degreaser. So if you're familiar with the Twister or the Mobius, there's like that brush that's on the inside, and there's a wire tumbler on the Mobius. Like, we determined that Shield, if you're wet cleaning or wet trimming, Shield wasn't the best cleaner for that. And there are others, but again, you still have to disinfect it, and we know that Shield is compatible with all of the parts on the machine.
But it really wasn't made for that. Like, it's not a degreaser. It is a cleaner and disinfectant.
It does do a very good job.
But it doesn't.
We've been into places like extraction facilities where they have a resin spill on their floor, and again, we say, pour some on there, maybe rub it a little bit, let it sit, come back in 10 minutes, and it's 75% easier to get off.
Yeah.
Like you're left with maybe 25% left, do it again, and it's gone.
Yeah. So it's really applicable in 95% of every square foot within a facility. Shield can really do the job from both a cleaning and disinfecting perspective.
For sure, and even when the plants are in the room, that's another big question we get, where maybe you have nutrient buildup on the floor, whatever you have, you want to clean in the room. Per Health Canada regulations, you can't apply the product in any way that could you can get it onto the plants. So spraying is really out of the option. You don't want to foam. You can use our Shield wipes that are pre-saturated in the room, or really any way. You can even use a mop or a bucket with microfiber to get areas that you may want to do throughout the clean. And that's important too. You could use ISO as well in the same way, but there's VOCs and that I don't know if it's going to affect the crop, but air quality is really important inside those rooms. So
employee safety should be top of mind for a lot of licensed producers out there, or every licensed producer out there. Should be employee safety. Should be a number one driver for the decisions for the products they're using to disinfect their facility. So outside of uses within cultivation rooms and equipment and extraction technologies, what about large greenhouses? We deal with a lot of large greenhouse LPs across the country. What's the best practices and protocols you've seen for large greenhouse spaces?
Yeah, so
whether it be perpetual harvest or large areas that need to be cleaned and disinfected.
That's what I was about to mention. Yeah, perpetual harvest versus non-perpetual harvest. So we have one customer who just does not do perpetual harvest. They will remove all the plants at once and do a large room clean, and that's really the best option, where you can kind of go crazy. We have we work with another company that manufactures foaming equipment, and they have some really high pressure foaming equipment. And again, with Shield, you don't need there's no additive. It naturally will foam if you apply it through this equipment. And I've seen 40,000 square foot greenhouses, the walls and the ceiling disinfected in as little as half an hour.
Oh wow!
And it makes it so much. Like, you can imagine if you're using like a microfiber mop that's extendable compared to spraying a foam gun, which would you rather do? It's be a lot more enjoyable for the employee, and it's a lot quicker. Mm-hmm. And then again, you let that foam dry, run down, let it dry, and you're good to go.
Because there's no need to pre-clean or no need to rinse on those surfaces. It literally is one step.
Exactly. We talked a little bit of rinsing there too. So again, as per the Health Canada regulations, any disinfectant you use on a surface that's going to contact cannabis, you're required to rinse. So
what kind of things, like I guess trimming blades?
Really a lot of this, anything post-harvest, your
hand pruners.
If you're doing a Dutch tray system, then you're going to have to rinse after you disinfect those tables. If you're just doing drip irrigation, you're not going to have to.
Okay.
So, and we're happy to, we usually work with that as well. And some facilities maybe their plants are touching the walls, for example, but over 90% of your facility, you're not going to need to pre-clean. You're not going to need to pre-clean, but you're not going to need to rinse either.
Okay.
And that's a large benefit. especially in the grow rooms where, as we mentioned, in the greenhouse, your walls, ceilings, there's not going to be cannabis touching that, so you can go crazy with the foamer and you don't have to rinse after. Another spot we've spent a lot of time on as well is under the tables. Maybe in a greenhouse or indoor, kind of applicable to both, where I've seen people on like a skateboard with a helmet on and a full mask kind of under the table going for it.
Sounds fun. Doesn't
sound fun at all. Like even just, you know why they're wearing a helmet, because someone's hit their head in the past, right? Like it's probably happened.
Super Dave.
So yeah, again, that could take long, not enjoyable. Where we've worked with this company to create like an elbow on our foaming wand, so it kind of shoots up, and you can just walk by the table, it sprays foam up. And the great thing about foam, which I haven't mentioned, is that it sticks to those vertical surfaces that a liquid wouldn't. It would drip off and it might not reach that contact time. And you can see where the foam is hit. So you walk by under the table, it's going to hit the whole underside. It's going to stay there for at least 5 minutes. If you really want to, you could look under the table, visually see if it's hit it all. And then again, you don't need to rinse that because it's not going to contact cannabis.
Yeah, so way faster.
And we've got on our GrowHaus website, and we'll point the audience to that. We've got lots of great video resources of showing the foaming equipment in action, cleaning of trimming equipment, soaking of products and resins, and the removal, and how well Shield works. We have lots of videos to share for that as well. So,
and one thing I wanted to ask, so a lot of people don't know the terminology. Like there's a lot of education gaps on. Because a little while ago you mentioned 1 to 128 to sanitize and 1 to 40 to disinfect. Can you explain the difference? Like what's sanitization, what's disinfection?
Yeah, sure. So I'll even take one step further than that. So we'll start with cleaning. Cleaning is just the physical removal of soil from the surface. Then kind of the next step up from that is your sanitizing, which it's only effective against bacteria, so that is something important to note. And that's a 3 log reduction. So if you started with 100,000 bacteria on a surface and you sanitized it, you'd be left with 100 bacteria there. Whereas you look at then the next step up would be disinfecting, which can have claims against fungi, viruses, bacteria, mycobacteria, pretty much everything on the scale there. That's a 5 log reduction of any of those as well. So if you start with that at same 100,000, you'd be left with 1.
So it doesn't work. It only works. Sanitizing only works on bacteria, not fungus and viruses.
It's only effective against bacteria.
I didn't know that.
Yeah.
Where do you draw the line on your recommendations for where a facility should be sanitizing versus where they should be disinfecting?
Well, pre-COVID, we set a lot of customers up with your office area, maybe your non-cannabis receiving bay, some of those non-critical areas in your facility were set up for that sanitizing. You save a little bit of money. And your product just goes a little bit further. That's really the benefit there. But now with COVID now, kind of I guess at the tail end of it, but throughout it, a lot more facilities were actually using 1 to 40 throughout their entire facility, including their offices. So we really leave it up to the customer to choose what they want. We always provide our recommendations, but yeah, it's really up to you. We even have some facilities that they'll clean their floors 3 times a day, for example. We'll say use the 1 to 120. Using that 1 to 40, it's just really just overkill. You're going to go through a lot more product, and that 3 log reduction 3 times a day is going to be just as good.
Interesting.
So you mentioned COVID. How is that? So it kills COVID.
Yep.
Is COVID easy to kill?
It somewhat is. Like if you look at the hierarchy of susceptibility, the class of viruses that COVID's in is at the bottom. But it's not for sure. Even if you look at isopropyl against non-envelope viruses, it's less effective. Like some chemistries just kind of have that where it might not be effective against a certain family or whatnot. So just because it's easy to kill doesn't mean everything can kill it. We're working to get an official claim with the GLP lab to show that we can in the right amount of time.
Okay.
But right now, so what we have and what a lot of others don't is called the emerging pathogen claim. So basically, I think the last on our label right here, the last one was for, I think, swine flu. But basically, Health Canada will look at the disinfectants that they have DIN numbers for and look at the data and say, okay, based on the data we see here, you're a really good product. You can kill anything that comes to us under these categories. So we have this emerging pathogen claim, and if you are really worried about the COVID or coronavirus, make sure you have a disinfectant that has it, because there's you're pretty much guaranteed that it will eradicate it. And our products are used quite extensively now across the world, even before over 90% of hospitals. And right now, Virox across all of our markets, we're producing at 24/7. We've never had to do this before.
I bet.
Even during SARS or
You guys
swine
are popular
flu.
guys.
Yeah. So, and the government of Ontario just gave us a grant to, I forget what the fund was. I think it was called the Get Together Fund. But it was for a whole new wipes line because, obviously Ontario likes to support products made in Ontario, but Canada really needs it. Like we're doing everything we can to get it out there, and we're really happy to have that help from them.
Yeah.
Well, the product's used in 90% of hospitals in North America, and it's used on the International Space Station.
Yeah,
So
we don't
I
want to
can-
run out.
We don't want to run out.
Yeah.
So we talked a little bit about some of the formats that Shield comes in, ready to use versus concentrate. Can you explain the difference between? Are those two different products?
Yeah.
Is it the same product at different ratios? Where would somebody maybe choose to use one versus the other? Is it a size or scale question or an application type question?
Sure, yeah. So the products are different. So a lot of the times we'll get a question where maybe someone looked at the concentrate starts at 1 to 4, or it starts at 7%. Sorry, when you dilute it at 1 to 40, basically just divide 7 by 41. I forget. I think it's like 0.17% hydrogen peroxide you get. And then people will compare that to the 0.5% hydrogen peroxide in the RTU, and they ask, "Oh, can I just dilute it to the 0.5?" So when we talk about that, the concentrate was really made to be stable in the concentrate form. It's actually really stable in the diluted form as well. So
As compared to
yeah, as well. So once diluted. So in the concentrate, it's 2 years. Once diluted, it's 30 days, which is really long. If you look at a lot of co-op products, isopropyl actually is 1 day. You have to change it out after you've diluted it.
1 day.
Yeah. So if you're going from 90.
So if you put it in a spray bottle, a day later you have to change that bottle and dump it down. Well, you can't even dump it down the drain, can you? Can you?
Not iso.
Isopropyl?
I think it might depend on the quantity. I'm not sure, but I'm sure
Yeah.
people are doing it anyways.
Yeesh.
Yeah, so that one was really made to be stable at the concentrate. It is still very stable at once it's diluted, as I said, for 30 days. And we have test strips where you can go in there if maybe you have a bottle that it's at that 28-day mark. You're not sure if it's going to be good. You can use this test strip. It's like a hot tub test strip to validate it is still good to use.
Okay.
Same thing if you're soaking equipment in a huge tote. You can use that test strip. Maybe it looks a little bit dirty, but it's still kind of on the edge.
Yeah.
And it'll tell you
Probably
right
the
away.
same with like foot mats when you step on the foot mats,
Yeah.
disinfecting.
Yep,
Before
and
you go
then
in a room.
something else we have. I'll get back into the concentrate RTU, but we have like dilution systems and really a program around that where we've got really good feedback from Health Canada. So it's a dilution system, size of a book, goes on your wall, water input, and you have a pressure gauge on there. So we set it up. It's all pressure fed and runs off that. So we set it to a certain PSI. Basically, as a QA, your daily check is look at that PSI. Is it within the range that we set it? You can mark it on your logbook, and then maybe once a week. You can do it every day if you want, but minimum once a week. Take some solution, do your test strip, and then once you get that passed, you create a log for it. Health Canada comes in for an audit. You show them not only are we using a Health Canada approved product that has a DIN number for cannabis, we're also validating that it's being disinfected correctly. All that they absolutely love it.
Yeah, amazing.
Yeah. And then again, the dilution system saves you a lot of time where you're not hand diluting. It's as you're turning a knob, it's all done for you.
I mentioned dumping it down the drain. Good for the environment.
Yeah, so Shield is readily biodegradable. The only thing that really isn't is the actual wipe substrate itself. With the liquid, you can dump down the drain. There's no storage requirements. When you're using it, there's not even any PPE needed.
Amazing.
So you don't need to wear any PPE when you're applying and using Shield.
Yeah, once it's diluted and the concentrate, you would technically need gloves and safety goggles. You're gonna get if you're handled hydrogen peroxide, you get like a little white
that
oxidation.
turns
Doesn't
your
even
skin
hurt or
white a little
anything.
bit. Yeah.
But again, with that dilution system set up, you're never touching the concentrate. So it really eliminates all those risks of improper diluting. Like the time that actually takes all that. And if you're an employee and someone says, here's this jug, go dilute this at 1 to 40, and then go clean this room. There's many things that can happen. One, you're probably just going to do an eyeball. It's not going to be perfect. And then you're also going to be like, I have to go dilute this. And you're maybe to cut corners down the line because you want to get home at the right time. Whereas, all right, go use that dilution system, pour it out, and then go clean that room. It just makes it that much easier to do the job.
Yeah.
Save a little bit of time.
I guess, so if you can use, so you got the wipes, that's for like high touch surfaces, I imagine. You've got the liquid, and you can foam it. So you can use this almost everywhere in your facility. And if you're using one product versus maybe 4 or 5 different bottles of different stuff, this is used for this is used for that, that's probably a lot easier, that you're not going to mess up, and you will actually disinfect.
Well, and your standard operating procedures are going to be much easier to follow. SOPs will be much easier to follow as a staff.
Products, even the procurement guy or girl who's ordering all these different products, trying to manage all that, makes it easier for really everyone. Your storage in the back, and there's a lot of reasons why you don't want to have multiple products on the site. One is just, again, as John mentioned, the complexity it adds to your protocol. So maybe it's like, hey, stainless steel, you use this at 1 to 30. On your walls, you use this product at 1 to 128, and you have 4 different products, 4 different dilution systems. There's a really big chance that someone's going to mess one of those up. We're all human. Another risk is actually accidentally mixing 2 products, and that has a lot. That's really dangerous as well. So if you look at ammonium and ammonia products and chlorine products, they create a really deadly gas. And my cousin's actually a paramedic, and they deal with that a lot. And a mom trying to clean her pool maybe before her husband comes back and mixes the chemicals, and he's seen it where they inhale those chemicals, and it's not good. It pretty much disintegrates your lungs. So you don't want any of that risk happening. And even maybe you have you're cleaning your room, you just use an ammonia cleaner, it's puddled on the floor, and then you apply your bleach. Even that little bit amount can create some of that. So just a risk you don't want to have in your facility. But yeah, having one product, it's like, I know I can use this everywhere. I know the dilutions. I know it's safe. I know maybe where I can't use it, and it just makes everything easier.
Right. So what do you see outside of all the great benefits that we were talking about? Again, I can see why people suggest that maybe this product's too good to be true. Because it really does check all the boxes compared to what else is available to them. What's the cost of Shield?
So the cost, before I answer that question, actually, I'll take a step back to the differences of the concentrate and ready to use.
Sure.
So concentrate, as I mentioned, meant for the stability long term, diluted at 1 to 40. It's about 32 cents per diluted liter if you're buying the drum, and from the 4 liter it goes to about 40 cents per diluted liter, which is pretty cheap. If you look at ISO, for example, we've seen up to $30 per liter for 70%. So
so you're 100 times less on a
yeah,
product
exactly.
cost basis.
Not only to mention all the other benefits. And then at the 1 to 128 for sanitizing, I think it's between 10 and 12 cents per diluted liter. Then you look at the RTU, the ready-to-use product, which is ready to go. As soon as you buy it, you can put a sprayer on it. You can use the wipes. So there's a convenience factor there as well. The wipes end up being about 10 cents per wipe, and the ready-to-use, I think it's about 4 to 5 times more in the concentrate. I'm not entirely sure on the dollar per liter number, but the ready-to-use is more of the convenient product, and we see that used. A lot of the laboratories around use it. So even if you have a laboratory in your facility where maybe the size of this kind of area here, a couple stainless steel benches, you can put a wipes in there and kind of keep it clean throughout your process. Maybe once a year, you're going to clean the whole lab. But a lot of the microprocessors and cultivators, they like the RTUs. Maybe they don't even have access to water. They can't dilute. And there's actually even larger cultivators who didn't have access to clean water, or they didn't want to use that water to dilute because it was so short supply. So the RTU is really great for that. The wipes are used by literally every customer we have. They really become a quick favorite. They're just really convenient. We have little brackets so you can put them on a wall. If you have, even if you have facility specific shoes, like the croc looking things, use that wipe to clean your shoes end of the day, throw it out, and it's clean, disinfected end of the day.
Your hands too, I imagine. Anything really. Your phone
is another
tools,
big one. Yeah.
Your doorknobs.
Like you said, you can use them while plants are in the room because you're not aerosolizing.
Yeah, that too, and it really now, especially with people really taking sanitation throughout their whole facility seriously, and disinfection. High touch surfaces, and that's really a large spread of any kind of pathogen in your facility. So that's your keyboards, your door handles. If you have like a shared kind of like a phone in the facility, any of that stuff that's high touch, that's where it spreads. And these wipes, leave them around there, and just clean those when you're done. Or maybe you're the last person to leave the grow room, grab a wipe, clean your door handles, close the door.
Yeah.
Go home.
So that 1 liter ready to use bottle there, it looks like you could just throw a nozzle and a trigger on that.
Yeah.
Is that what it's made for? And you can just start, or you can squirt it and wipe it.
So there's also here, I'll show you. There's also it's like a ketchup style bottle. That's how it comes like that.
Yeah.
And that's really great for. So let's say you're cleaning a floor, you can just spray it out on the floor and use a microfiber to spread that around instead of actually using that mop and bucket, which that bucket is just carrying pathogens throughout your whole facility. It's getting dirty. You're putting it back into that solution that was supposed to be clean. It's just getting slowly more contaminated over time. So we recommend, it's pretty much, we call it the squirt and go method, where squirt a little on the floor, spread around your microfiber, and then maybe you're cleaning a wall where you can actually get that microfiber, squirt it right on there, and then extend it out to the wall.
Yeah.
So you're just kind of avoiding the use of that mop and bucket, and then you're, at the end of that mop and bucket, you're dumping out half that at the end, right? And there you're saving a lot.
True.
Right.
True. And then this is the concentrate 4 liter. Is there other bigger sizes maybe for bigger guys?
So that's the 4 liter. We have a 20 liter pail, which we've really seen it as almost like a transition size from the 4 liter to the next one, which is the 200 liter drum.
Okay.
The 200 liter drum is where you're going to get kind of the most bang for your buck if you're a large enough facility. And it lasts for 2 years too. So even a 40,000 square foot facility, we've seen them go through it
That's true.
pretty quick.
Yeah.
And something to mention too, we'll provide those dilution stations for free to customers that purchase the 200 liter drums. Because again, collaboratively, we want to make sure customers have the best system to administer and use the product most efficiently.
And I guess during the time of this stupid virus that's going on right now, PPE is in high demand, right?
Yeah.
So I guess if you don't need PPE to clean your facility, maybe you could save your PPE for, I guess, the guys in the grow room that have to have it on.
The processing.
And maybe the cleaning staff doesn't have to wear the PPE, so you're holding on to some of that
your
too.
gloves, your hair nets, all that, you're going to use that regardless. But just like even like the face mask and the respirator and the
Who wants to wear one of those all day anyway?
If we've all been in greenhouses where it's 45 degrees, scorching hot in there, right? You're in a sauna, and then you're going to put on the Tyvek suit. Some of them require a full hood, all that. You're going to be absolutely sweating in there, not enjoyable whatsoever. PPE is kind of like the unnecessary evil. A lot of people are like, oh, we're spending too much money on PPE, this respirator program, but it's like, there's other options.
Yeah, but people typically carry the problems into the grow rooms. So I'm a big fan of PPE.
For sure. No, I'm not saying you don't need it, but just the
You're right.
excessive use of it. Again, when you're going down the rabbit hole of your respirator program, all that, maybe take a step back and see what else you can do.
Well, especially in an environment where you can't find a nitrile glove. You can't find a lot of the PPE products that were readily available pre-COVID. They're just not available. Or if they are available, they're 10 times the price that they were prior to COVID. So another cost factor to consider as well for these guys.
Yeah,
it's interesting.
Yeah. So the wipes, you said they just have to go in the garbage when they're done?
Yeah.
Is it a special wipe, or is it just like the Clorox wipes that you see, or the other wipes that you see typically?
No, we've actually spent a lot of time developing the substrate that's in the wipe. So the actual liquid that is in the ready-to-use liquid and the liquid that's in the wipes is the same technology, but the substrate itself we spent a lot of time developing. So it's 7 layers, which is a little bit more than the typical wipe you'd see. So it really does hold up. I've been scrubbing resin off a table, and the wipe, it really doesn't rip, doesn't pill, so you don't gonna get those white little fluffs everywhere. Which that's important. That's a contaminant to your end product, especially in the extraction. Like, you do not want one of those little white fluffs going through an extraction machine. That's gonna cause some really big damage. So that's really important. But then a couple other things that we look at is the wetness of it. So when you pull it out, if you have a Lysol wipe, pull it out and you'll see it's dripping on the table.
It just drips off.
Yeah, so these ones, they hold that liquid like really well. They'll pull it out, it's not going to be dripping. Then we have what we call a metered release. So as you wipe the wipe along the surface, you'll see an even amount of liquid being dispersed throughout the whole thing. On top of that, it's really good at actually removing those soils. We've actually Virox has done studies that show that it was probably about a couple of years ago when it still is, but fentanyl was a really large issue. And a lot of the healthcare workers maybe were getting in contact with it and having some issues there. So these wipes were proven to remove 99.9% of fentanyl residue from one surface. So one wipe, removing it, and then if you were to put it on another surface, it didn't deposit any of more of that back onto that surface. So
Yeah, a bit of thought going into those.
I spent probably a year, maybe two, looking at the different substrates out there, seeing if we could make them any better. And it's one of those things if you don't know that how much work went into it, you wouldn't think so. But it's very important for us, and even right now, a lot more so because of the supply. Like Kimberly Clark and all those big suppliers of microfibers and that. It's tough, right?
Everything is tough to get a hold of around the world right now. Cleaning and PPE and hand sanitizer,
that's
all of that
one great
stuff.
thing about Shield too. We're manufactured in Ontario, and we're very, very conscious to have a full supply of products. The last thing we want to do is have Toronto General or one of the big hospitals have no product, and you can't. How are you going to help those patients? Or cannabis facility as well. Like if you don't have any disinfectants, you can't clean your grow room. You might have an outbreak. So we're very, very conscious at Virox to make sure we always have products to serve the industry's needs.
Yeah. So it sounds like, relatively speaking, for most LPs are using an unsafe product that's not safe for employees. It's not as effective as something like Shield. Often requires 2 steps in the process, so increased costs from a labor perspective. Multiple steps in the process with multiple chemicals to achieve the same thing that Shield can achieve. What's some of the challenges that you see when you're talking to an LP in terms of getting them to switch or convincing them to switch, showing them the evidence why they should switch? What are some of the challenges that you see out there? Why isn't every facility out there making the
I can't see anyone saying no to this.
And
it seems like an easy decision.
Not many people say no. It's more just the process. It's longer. So I think the first kind of issue, I guess you could say, we get into is people saying, it's like you're selling snake oil. It's too good to be true, right? And then we say, all right, let's plan a trial. We'll put it to the test. Well, let's see exactly what you're doing. Just switch the product, and we'll see. Even though we'd recommend to use the product differently, just do that. So we plan a lot of trials at the facility, and every single one has completely benefited Shields. Whether that's using ATP to detect
what's that?
ATP. I'm probably not going to get the exact ATP right, but basically it's ATP is like the energy in all cells, and bacteria, viruses, fungi. So the idea behind it is if you were to swab a surface that has bacteria on it, the ATP that's there would react with, I think it's called luciferase, which is an enzyme that's found in fireflies that creates light. So when you swab it and it creates that light in the machine, it'll give you a number, an RLU number. So it's not perfect because, again, there's some chemistries like isopropyl and chlorine. Actually, I don't want to pick on them, but they're just really good examples. They degrade proteins and DNA. So that ATP, it's called leaching, I think, where the number might be lower than it actually is because they're actually destroying some of that ATP. Whereas other products that oxidize or have different methods of attack might actually spill out the ATP. Anyways, that's how it works. It's not perfect, but we do have it's a really good indicator of what's going on in your rooms. So we always set the customers up with an analysis of trending data.
So it's a handheld tester?
It's a handheld tester. So let's say this is grow room 1. Every Monday you do your swab in here, and the software tracks it for you. So maybe every other Monday you do your clean, so you see one Monday up here, down here. Then maybe you see 2 in a row that are high. Something's going on. That's really what ATP is for. It's not going to tell you what's causing it or what you can do to fix it, but it's going to tell you where your rooms are. And we also, there is pass and fail criteria as well. So if under 200 RLU, it's like a green for sure. 200 to 300 might be a yellow, which is like, if you think it should pass, it looks clean, at least say why, and you're comfortable with it, it's kind of your decision. And then, over, I think, 400, it's red, which is like something wasn't done properly, clean it again.
Gotcha.
Reswab.
Yeah, and then, so that's one thing. We have our micro swabbing as well, which we like to do both of those in a trial. So ATP, as I said, because it's not perfect, you don't want to rely on it, especially for a trial where, as I mentioned, the difference of disinfectants, you might not get the best comparison. Not to say that once you have that baseline, you can still set up your ATP for whatever product, but micro doesn't lie.
What is a micro, like more of a lab test?
Yeah, so you're going to there's different ones. You have plates where you might rub a plate on a surface, send it out. We typically use like cotton swabs type thing where you swab a surface in a specific way and then break it off, send it to the lab. They'll tell you how much CFU per swab. And what you also want to do is a before and after. Sometimes we'll see facilities who just after they clean, they do a swab, but you want to see what that starting number was from. So let's say you might have two areas. One of them started at 10,000, one of them started at 100, and they both got down to 10. Someone's like, oh, that's great, but really, that one that was started at 10,000, that's a much better result.
Yeah.
If the other one started at 10,000, might not have gone that low. So doing your before and after for both ATP and micro, and then, bringing it all together in the end. And what makes more sense. And, maybe there's been times where both products are even on the ATP, and then the micro, that really does show the difference. And there's also other times where ATP and micro show the exact same thing.
Well, the analogy we use is ATP is like measuring to the centimeter, and micro testing is measuring to the millimeter.
Yeah.
Fair enough.
And, that is somewhat part of the Health Canada regulations that I think we all know are quite vague, but it does say you have to monitor your program. And we believe ATP is really the best kind of in-process monitoring way, and then, coupled with micro. So as I kind of mentioned, if you have a problem in a room and that ATP keeps going up, or the RLU keeps going up, you can send a swab out to a lab, and they'll tell you exactly what the pathogen was that was there, the actual amount that was there, and that can help you choose what product and what protocol you're going to use to clean that room moving forward. And then on top of that as well, you have your the test strips. So you have all this monitoring going on to ensure that your whole process is working the way it's intended.
Yeah, interesting.
That's great. That's great. So if you had sort of one piece of advice to the people listening about their, I guess, even grow tent or big LP, what can you think of? Like, what do you think is important, or maybe the next step for them to make sure that they're keeping their facility clean?
Well, I think
education.
Education for sure. But I think if you're a new LP, you're thinking about either building a new facility, expanding your facility, like you're in that stage, you got to think about sanitation from the ground up. Like, I've been in facilities where they don't even have floor drains. I'm sure you've seen that as well.
I have.
And I don't get it. Like, how are you going to clean this, let's even just say 10,000 square foot room without a floor drain? There's a spill, whatever. Like,
irrigation leak.
Irrigation leak. I've seen that. I don't understand, like, why you wouldn't put a floor drain in. I don't know. Maybe you have like a benefit to that I'm not aware of.
No, if I had to answer that question, I would venture that they bought a building or had a building that was existing. They built rooms inside that, a box in a box. They didn't redo the concrete floor. The drains were where they were. They didn't want to spend the money or rejig the whole drain system, plumbing system. I honestly don't know. And I'm honestly scared to ask people because I don't know if I want the answer.
Yeah.
Well, most facilities we're in that don't have drains, they admit it was a mistake not having them.
For sure. They all do.
And they all wish that they had put them in.
They're battling it the whole time. Like,
I guess you can't power wash. I guess you could mop, but
I've seen. Well, some will, and they
foam.
They HVAC it at the end and they suck it all up.
Shop vac. Yeah, wet vac.
Sorry, shop vac it up. But it's not ideal. Again, it's over time. That's just, if you could shrink that down, you're gonna be saving a lot more money and labor over that long.
So overall, you're saying put more thought into your cleaning.
Yeah, like even cleaning bays, for example. So somewhere where you can, you don't have to clean in place always. If you have a Mobius or a trimmer, a twister, or any kind of large equipment, you can bring it to this cleaning bay that it has walls where you can pressure wash, has proper drainage, hopefully has a shield dilution system so you can quickly get your product out. But again, like, that's so important. It's so commonly overlooked as well. We're like, okay, so we're getting a tour of a facility. It's okay. So take us to the cleaning bay, or where do you do your cleaning? I've seen like 100,000 square facilities, and their cleaning area is smaller than this space.
So it's an afterthought almost. It's a necessary evil, but many people just they focus on growing great weed.
Yeah.
They don't focus on.
I get it. Like, it's not the funnest part. Like, clean disinfection isn't the funnest part, but you can make it a little bit easier if you think about it ahead of time and plan for it. And there's a lot of, even that you mentioned too, like your room design, the box inside a box, I think, or the room inside a room you call it, like that also makes it a lot easier. If you have everything tucked away and you can spray and foam away in the room, it makes it a lot easier than if you have your HVAC and everything on the roof and you're like trying to figure out how you're going to get around stuff and behind things to clean it.
Yeah.
Just your overall room design can save you so much time in that. But hey, not everyone's at that stage, and other people have already built facilities.
They're
like
learning
that.
as they go too, right?
Yeah, so
Well, you could see how facilities would minimize their cleaning areas because they're trying to maximize their grow space and set up their models for their sales and their profits from cultivation. But if you take the time to plan out your facility properly and allow for the right amount of space to clean and disinfect the facility, you're going to achieve better results for your cannabis anyway.
Yeah, and I'd say my other recommendation for growers who maybe are past that point, they have their facility, you're working with what you got. It's just, always look for continuous improvement. So whether that be searching for new products, disinfectants, or even application methods, but it's just like every other grower is looking at different soil, different nutrients, different lighting.
Yeah.
It's a very key part of your process. Again, I mentioned it might not be the most fun, but a lot of these new technologies coming out, and there's a lot of work being done in it to make that easier for you and to make it not a pain in the ass every time.
If it can stop a powdery mildew outbreak in a facility by killing those spores on the walls or wherever they're lying that you can't see, it's worth it right there.
Yeah, no, it definitely can do that. But again, it's all about one thing I'll say, it's a part of your process. If you only focus on sanitation, your HVAC isn't working, and then you're still going to have these issues.
True.
Right.
But assuming all the rest is better, it's really important, and it will get rid of everything you need. It's about the proactive approach. You can't. When you see powdery mildew, is not the time to start using
That's
the product.
too late.
You're bailing out a ship that's sinking. You want to make sure those rooms are cleaned, disinfected. The hallways are before you bring anything in there. If you're starting with a dirty room,
the starting material, the clones, right, coming in from outside other facilities, they sometimes come in with bugs, sometimes come in with powdery mildew.
Yeah, and you know what? They're probably, no matter what you do, they'll have a little bit of that, and plants have that natural defense as well. But
it's about control, right?
It's about control. Like, it's not just because you cleaned once doesn't mean you can just look the other way. Like, go in the room. If you see build up on the floor of leaves or whatever it is, like, just clean it out. It makes it easier if you do a little bit every day than just saving it all for the end. Some cases you're gonna have to do your whole clean at the end, but try to make it easier for yourself.
Oh, that's great, man. That's great. Hey, great advice. I learned a lot. Hopefully the listeners are learning. I have no more questions. You got anything, John?
Nope. Seems like a no-brainer for Shield for all the reasons we've talked about. Yeah. And we hope that the product gets into every facility across Canada, from the largest to the smallest, and everyone in between.
Yeah, thank you very much. Thanks for having me. I hope I was able to provide some education.
Absolutely.
I guess for any listeners out there, if you want more information, educational or specific on the products, shield.ca is a great website. We have a YouTube channel as well, and then of course GrowHaus.ca for kind of the whole package there too.
GrowHaus Supply.
GrowHaus Supply, sorry.
Yeah. And it's Shield with a Y, right? Is that
Shield
your yield?
SHYIELD, and it was.
That's a cool name.
Shield your yield.
Shield
That's
your
really I remember on a whiteboard we had the reasons we want to get in the industry: protect your yield, quality, and the reputation. You don't want to have a big write-off or a crop failure. That'll hurt your reputation. So our marketing geniuses back at Virox came up with Shield your yield and then condensed it to Shield.
Awesome. Right on, man. Hey, well, listen, we thank you for your time. First guest ever on the Cannabis 45 podcast.
I'm honored.
Yeah.
And we'll get you back if
we'll have you back on for sure.
We'll have you back on, and we'll see what's new at Shield and Virox.
Awesome. Well, thanks very much, guys.
Thank you.
Thanks, bud.